Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got one more play a props bet here before the NBA All-Star break. Definitely want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page, as we also have best bets up for this little Thursday night slate with 3 games on it. We also want you to head to thelines.com and use that prop finder tool that Nate and I use each and every day. We're making these picks for you guys. And go ahead and get the best odds available to you from all these books that are giving us bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first play a prop here for Thursday.
Yeah, I'll take a SGP here with Steph to get 25 points and 4 threes. That's definitely a conservative parlay here. We don't know what the odds will be yet because they are in progress at the Clippers. I'm hoping the Clippers do a good job of limiting Steph, which they have the past few seasons. Ty Lue throwing the kitchen sink at him, and then maybe you get a little more value here at Utah, which will also be on a back-to-back, and Utah is just a terrible defense that sold off some parts and is now, kind of just playing out the string and, not as competitive as they were a couple weeks ago. We just saw the Warriors lay the smackdown on them. And Steph have a nice game. He's now averaging 29 with 6.5 threes in his last 2 against Utah. His last 3 on a back-to-back have just been absolutely insane. I mentioned this, 45 points per game. He's hit 31 threes on 53 attempts. And he's got to go right from this on Saturday night to the 3-point contest, right, against Sabrina Ionescu, for whatever that's worth. But, I like targeting these 3-point shooters when they have so many games in a row. As you see with Steph, the basket seems bigger on a back-to-back. He plays the game at a different speed than everybody else. He is more fit than you. He is willing to run around. And then on top of that, he is warmed up from the previous night, and he can just absolutely scorch. His last 3 in general, he's shooting 56% from 3. He's shooting better from 3 than from 2. And, a lot of that has to do with Draymond getting back to hit the height of his powers, right? Now you look at the entire sample on the road with Dre this season, 30 points per game, 5.5 threes at 45% versus 21 points per game and only 32% when Dre was out for road games earlier this season. Yeah, the Warriors are back. Steph and Dre have their thing going. So parlay them however you please.
I like it. I'm also just kind of piggybacking off of some of the thought process. Well, not really, because you're talking mostly about Steph doing super well in these back-to-backs and also just crushing Utah. I kind of like B-Pod, his backup there, and who has also played plenty of minutes on the floor with Steph as well, especially without Chris Paul over the last month. But Brandon Pajemski over 10.5. I'll go rebounds and assists in the event that Steph decides to shoot the ball 40 times again on on the second leg of a back-to-back game, like he did against Atlanta, 38 to be exact. The young guns, though, I think they might be coming out in this moment in time where, if I'm like Klay Thompson, I don't know, why am I traveling to Utah? Why am I going there? Do I really want to play on this back-to-back? If I'm anybody like that, I would just consider it. I think Draymond probably plays. He's missed enough time this season without even being injured. And then, I think there's just no way you sit Steph unless you're just forfeiting the game at that point. So, but B-Pods I would expect to be in there a bit more in this one, and a bit more than a guy like Klay, who I imagine will be getting some decent minutes against the Clippers here in this game, where I do think they like a little bit of the seniority to go up against the senior Clippers, if you will. And as I'm looking at Klay playing in this game right now, he's already leading the team in minutes in this one, which starts to make me go, all right, that furthers the point that perhaps he's not playing in this one. And it's similar to how we saw LeBron just kind of play more minutes than you would expect against Detroit, because he's not playing against Utah, and they knew that the whole time that he wasn't going to play against Utah tonight as we're recording this here on Wednesday. So now we move forward into the same logic with B-Pod and Brandon Pajemski, who has been awesome, man. And all we really need for dude is overs and over in minutes. And if we get minutes, then we get overs for him, especially with the rebounds and assists. So he's gone under the 10.5 that I have him projected for, because that's been his line predominantly for the last week or two, has been about 10.5 rebounds and assists, not really any higher than that. And so with that number in mind, He's gone over in 8 of the last 9 games that he's played at least 28 minutes. And he's played 28 minutes about 12 times out of his last 20 games, right? And Klay missed a couple of those, but that's not super important. It's more just okay, this is one of those games where the rotation is going to be relying upon the young guys. If he is the point guard with or without Steph, and to a degree, he's been the point guard with Steph as they've been able to run Steph off of picks and off-ball screens for the purpose of getting him the ball in space and not making him bring the ball up every time. him, and that's where you get Podziemski hitting Steph around the corner for those assists. Utah is an assist like let up machine, if you will. They've just given up the most to point guards on the season. They're a bottom 5 team in terms of limiting assists overall. They are a pretty good rebounding team, but BPOD is going to be in there. The rebounds are available for point guards as well, as much as that position does get the rebounds, and that's where he sort of acts more like a small forward, similar to like a Gary Payton Jr. in that sense, where it's like, yeah, you might be undersized, but first of all, Brandon Podziemski has a post-up game on offense. I bet you didn't know that. And second of all, that's where he's playing a lot on offense. He has taken a handful of threes, slightly less than a handful, over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks with this minutes increase. But at the same time, like he's playing a lot closer to the basket than you might expect for a guy his size, which is why those rebound chances have been there for him. He's been a top 3 in rebound chances and potential assists for this team over the last 5 games. And like I said, one of those actually included only playing 25 minutes against this Jazz team last time, where they clearly were just like, Steph, please just take us home. You're so hot that like we just are going to ride you to victory. And BPOD didn't have to do quite as much, only got the 25 minutes. They ended up winning that game pretty handily and saved him. But in this one, I do think, especially if Klay doesn't play, where he averages 11 rebounds and assists without Klay this season, then we're getting good value on the 10.5.
Yeah, it's part of why I like the Warriors over the Jazz is depth. Guys like this, guys like Quinones and Trace Jackson Davis, and guys they're just pulling off the scrappy who have now become part of the team. And that Draymond, part of the reason Draymond is like, my suspension was a good thing. Now we've suddenly found this depth where guys can come in and fill their role. And the Jazz sold off 3 rotation players at the deadline, and they're just not playing the same way. They're going to miss a lot apparently because they're on back-to-backs. Their offense has fallen off a cliff. So rebounding opportunities, and they've given up the second most assists at home all season, right? So easy money for BPOD if that's his number. This one might be a little scarier, but Anthony Simons over 3.5 3-pointers. Rather than taking his points, I'm just going to say he's going to keep firing away from deep because you cannot go down low on Minnesota. That was exactly the approach when they played 2 nights ago. He went 4 for 10 from 3. That's the 3rd straight game with 4 3-pointers. He is given the green light for sure, and he is hoisting. He's averaging 24 points a game and averaging 4 for 10 from deep in his last 3 at home in particular. It's because Malcolm Brogdon's out now. We don't know if Scoot's going to be back, and maybe that affects things. But, I mean, Simon's still the number 1 option here, especially in this particular matchup. Like, Scoot is not the same kind of perimeter threat. And Simons, with Brogdon out, his usage rate has jumped 5% in 8 games now. He's averaging 28 points per game and averaging nearly 5 threes a game without Brogdon. So, At home, the Blazers are more competitive, and that's just led to more minutes, therefore more 3-point attempts, more opportunities to get down. And like I've been saying with Steph, like I like taking somebody before the break who's a 3-point shooter rather than coming out of the break when you might be a little rusty. Like he's in a rhythm right now. They've played plenty of games. He sees the basket well, and that's the one area where the Wolves, even though they limit 3-pointers like they limit everything else, like if you're a transcendent kind of 3-point shooter like Simons, it's just you in the basket, you in your form, and I mean, if you take 10, you're probably gonna make 4.
You would hope so, yeah. He's been around that number for the season, so I would go with that. I'm going to just stay in the same game. I'll talk about DeAndre Ayton. I'm also waiting to see if Cat is going to play for the Timberwolves, or I'm sorry, if Ant Edwards is going to play for the Timberwolves, because then I do kind of like Cat at the 21.5 points that he's at right now. Of course, if Ant is out, then you probably are looking at that number jumping up a little bit for Cat, maybe up to 22 or even 23.5 points at that point. But he still averages 25 when Ant has been out this season, and gets a bunch more shots, and the usage jumps up for him. So I'm looking at that. We're also looking at a similar thing here with DeAndre Ayton, where Malcolm Brogdon is out. And as much as you might think that means that the center playing with Malcolm Brogdon might not do quite as well, it's actually averaging way more points, as you found out too, which is that in his last 4 without Brogdon, 21.8, basically 22 points per game, and 13.5 boards as well, where like maybe some of those are on offense because there's more misses because that offensive rating goes down without Malcolm Brogdon as well. But DeAndre Ayton doesn't really need the assisted field goals. He gets the ball, he does a soft baby hook, we know what's going to happen, or he pulls up while he's facing the basket. That's the offensive game for dude, or it's, getting those second chance points because he's so tall and long, obviously down low. But yeah, we just saw him do this against Rudy, and as I was saying in the best bets video, like I can't see a world where the Minnesota Timberwolves, as high up as they are in the Western Conference, and as much as they've been dominating teams, especially maybe the worst team in the conference at this point. I'm happy to say the worst team in the conference. I think the Spurs are better than them right now, with a couple nice wins lately for the Spurs as well, by the way. Then yeah, like come on, man, this is just human nature. Like I know that all these dudes are already on the beach somewhere in their mind. So why would Rudy really be trying that hard in this one in the first place? DeAndre Ayton, like if the effort is there, if the points are available for him, then the effort is there. He's one of those dudes that just apparently loves the stats. He wanted to get out of a team that was in the championship a couple seasons ago. Tells you a lot about him. He's obviously into those empty calories and those types of stats because he gets to boast a 13.5 rebound per game number, like I mentioned when he's playing without Brogdon. So like, there's none of the numbers I could give you about the way that the Timberwolves defend centers would indicate that he should go over. But I just think the volume is going to be there for him, where like he and Jeremy Grant are just going to be taking all the shots. So if you want to throw Jay Grant in there as well, he's at 19.5 points. I think his points prop is a good over as well for any of those bets right there. But for the Timberwolves, dude, for Cat, I would wait to see. For Ayton, we're good to go. And then as same concept for Jeremy Grant, I think he and Ayton are going to take the bulk of the shots in this one.
Well, I'm on Simons, not Grant. I don't think Jeremy Grant's game. I don't think his. I mean, maybe if Jaden McDaniels is out, that's a bonus for him for sure. But I don't think his game translates well to attacking this interior defense. Whereas Ayton, like you said, yeah, he doesn't attack. He kind of just fades away and throws up that hook, which is how he's able to make most of them last time and get 22. And yeah, I mean, if the total is correct here, if 215 is actually accurate, there's going to be a lot of rebounding opportunities, and Ayton's actually posting a career best 28% defensive rebounding rate. He's collecting them. There's just not many other guys out there to do so, because Jeremy Grant is not a fantastic rebounder. So yeah, I mean, and let's just target the guys who are left here for this Blazers game.
Well, let's do this. Let's also, when we come back, we'll remember this, and we can talk about it in the All-Star break video. But maybe we do a little who's got more points in this one. I'll take Jay Grant. You can have Anthony Simons, and we'll see how that goes.
Done.
I get plus money, obviously, in that one. We'll let you know how it goes when we come back. We'll talk about it later. I get 6 beers, you get 3 is how we're going to do this one. That is all the time we have for you, though, as we reach this All-Star break. As I said a couple times now, we are going to have a video breaking down some dunk contests, some three-point contests, some skills stuff. Maybe we'll look at the betting angles, if there are any, for Sabrina Ionescu versus Steph, because that would be pretty fun as well. We'll see how that goes. But continue to follow along. We will be back as soon as the NBA regular season does get back in action as well. So until we see you then, happy betting.